Hello, I'm going to give you a short talk today about the sword that we use in our practice of Iaido and some of the terminology that you'll need to know. So there's a little bit of a language lesson here and a few practical tips as well, I hope. So this is a katana, also called a daito or longsword, as opposed to a wakizashi, which is the companion sword that you might also wear in your belt, or a tanto dagger, which maybe tuck in the back of your obi. So you'll notice it's always in what's called a saya, which is the wooden sheath. This is actually made of pressed bamboo, laminated together and lacquered. It protects you from the sword when you're obviously drawing it out of your belt. You don't want to cut yourself when you're drawing. But it's also quite fragile, so you always want to be careful that you don't twist the sword as you draw. Don't let it rattle in the saya, and then this will keep you nice and safe. So a couple of things to look at here. So you'll see there's a cord tied to the sword. You can tie these in sort of fancy knots if you like, but I just tend to loop it around just so I can undo it, and it's there for when I need it. So this is what you use to tie the sword into your belt, and it stops somebody from grabbing the saya and pulling it away. And there's a quick release knot that we tie, so when you need to release it, you can pull the end and it comes loose. If somebody else grabs it, it keeps the sword safe. Okay, you'll see the sagio is tied to something called the kurigata, which is like a little loop here that it goes into. And one tip, when you're holding the sword or holding the saya, always have the back of your hand touching the kurigata, so you'll notice you can feel it, and then I know when I start to draw the sword, the sharp edge is at the top, so that's going to be nice and safe there. So I can always keep my thumb out of the way. You'll see when I'm drawing, I'll always hold the sword in the right hand and use my left hand nice and tightly round the saya, and this is called koiguchi. This looks like the mouth of a carp, apparently. So this is always when you're drawing, keep your thumb and forefinger together, and then you're not at any risk from the edge of the sword. So I'm just going to put this away again. So you'll notice as well, I always put my thumb on the tsuba. This is the metal guard. This is quite a small guard compared to like a Western sword, like a sabre or a rapier. It would have a guard that covers your whole hand. This you can't really rely on to protect you when you're engaging with another blade. So don't be tempted to do that. It's there just to distinguish between the handle, the part that you hold, and the rest of the sword. So talking of the handle, this is the ska, or ska, which is this portion of the sword. So you're holding it with two hands on this section, and this can also be used in an attack. There are several katas. There's the sukate, which is where just a strike with this part of the sword, or a gammon ate, which is a strike in somebody's face, but always holding onto that tsuba with your thumb. The fittings for the sword, you'll see, I don't know if this will show up on the video, there's a little bamboo peg there called the bakugi, which goes through a hole in the tang of the blade, and that holds the handle securely to the blade, keeps them all together. So there's two of those. There's another one that's under the fittings there. That keeps it all nice and tight. You'll see also here there's something called a seppa, which is a brass spacer that keeps the tsuba nice and tight. If you ever need to take the sword apart, you can always put a replacement seppa in there, or put a slightly thicker one, and that stops that tsuba from rattling. Okay, so I'm going to draw the sword. So just to show you a couple of things on here. So we've got the ha, which is the edge of the blade, the mune, which is the back of the blade. So if you're ever engaging with another sword, it's always with that nice thick part of the blade there. You never want to sort of clash edge to edge, because the swords, they're brittle on the sharp edge, and they will break or they'll stick together. It's not for parrying or in blocking in the Western sense. It's for deflecting. So you'd always aim to deflect, and the enemy sword would slide off that back edge there. Okay, and we're always remembering noto. So when you're putting the sword away, holding it with koiguchi again, making sure the back of the blade is going in, and it just slides away nice and smoothly. And again, thumb on for safety there. Okay, so that is the katana. I would always suggest, so when we're not training, it's a good idea to take your sword out at least once a week, maybe, just to clean it, to have a look, make sure there's no rust spots or discoloration, and just give it a little oil with some mineral oil. You can buy specific sword oil, or what I use is almond oil from Holland and Barrett. You can get a bottle of that for a few pounds, and that lasts for ages. I've had a bottle of that I've had for over a year. You just need a few drops, wipe it on with a soft cloth, and then just smooth it down. So when it's in the sire, it's not going to get dried out and start to rust. So any time that there's moisture on the blade, you want to make sure that it's cleaned off and oiled again before you put it away or store it for any length of time. Just if we've ever been cutting mats, or sometimes we've cut bits of watermelon or cabbage or whatever as a demonstration. So always after that, make sure it's nice and clean and dried and oiled and stored away safely. When you're storing as well, always store it with the back of the blade facing down, so the edge of the sword isn't cutting into the sire. So that keeps that sire nice and safe. Okay, so that's all I'm going to tell you today. I'll try and do some practical exercises next week, so I'll give you something to think about on that. But hopefully you'll go and have a look at your sword, make sure it's looking okay, and again, anytime once you've cleaned it, put it back in its bag, store it away, whether you've got a box you can put it in or a bag, so it's secure, it's not on view, and it's no temptation for anybody seeing it. So look after your sword, and your sword will look after you.